good evening. I'm Mamie Yang, the director of the Henry Waldinger Memorial Library in Valley Stream, New York. Welcome to the sixth and final concert in our second annual series of classical music recitals in 2022. They've been all on Zoom and presented by the library. Tonight's program features 20 compositions, including 7 world premieres performed by soprano Helene Williams and pianist composer Leonard Lehrman, the co-founders of the Court Street Music here in Valley Stream, and violinist Daniel Hyman, along with 4 guest performers, singing excerpts from the opera SACCO and VANZETTI, begun by Mark Blitzstein, completed by Leonard, which will have its staged New York orchestral premiere at Lehman College in the Bronx, September 10th and 11th. The excerpts we will be hearing tonight are recorded especially for this concert, as they've had to be cut from the opera for reasons of length. But we think and we hope that you'll agree that they're worth hearing on their own. As in all these concerts, all the vocal music has been subtitled. This year's programs have been made possible with funds from the Mandelbaum Foundation, thanks to Joel Mandelbaum, who's here, and the Professor Edgar H. Lehrman Memorial Foundation, as well as individual contributions from Juanita Smith and the late Charles Samuel Brown. The library has been very proud to have these recitals, especially since classical music concerts have been, over the past few years, been very rare in Long Island libraries. Our 2021 series featured the works of 59 composers and enjoyed the company of 27 guest performers, writers, musicians, interpreters, and their heirs, writing and calling in from 4 continents. In 2022, we've had 7 guest composers, 5 guest performers in works by 35 composers. You can see an overview of today's program, to which I'll be posting in the link in the chat. And all the links to these programs are posted on Leonard Lehrman's website and viewable on his YouTube channel, which includes over 40,000 videos, including all of his 12 operas and 5 of his 7 musicals, and has over 1,000 subscribers and has had over 1 million views. You can also watch all the pre-recorded music from this program at https://tinyurl.com/21June 2022. You will find the links of all the concerts, and I will be putting that in the chat. And now to introduce tonight's program is Dr. Leonard Lehrman.
Thank you so much, Mamie Eng, for co-sponsoring and hosting us today and all our recent house concerts. My wife, Helene Williams, and I have lived in Valley Stream since August 1999. Today is our 686th concert together, our 16th Valley Stream Library performance, each of them with our dear friend and colleague Daniel Hyman here in Valley Stream. Tonight's program, like that of last June, is devoted to music by students and teachers. And we're going to begin with 2 short songs I wrote while studying privately with Long Island's most prolific composer, Ellie Siegmeister. The first one, a 1965 setting of a poem by William Blake, he made me revise 9 times. And I dedicated it to him, calling him the master of the revision. The second one, actually written a year earlier, is a bimodal setting of a Christina Rossetti poem. The left hand has the key signature of 1 flat, the right hand and the vocal line 1 sharp. Here are Love's Secret and When I Am Dead, My Dearest.
Never seek to tell thy love, love that never told can be, for the gentle wind does move silently, invisibly. I told my love, I told my love, I told him all my heart,
I called those pieces Girls' Love Songs and combined them with a female quartet setting of a poem by Tennyson to form a cycle which was actually performed at Roslyn High School, though not since. Helene has, however, recorded those first two songs on our CD, Songs of Love, which some libraries have. It's on Capstone, 1995. Now I'm going to introduce some of our guest performers who will be singing excerpts from what composer Mark Blitzstein called his magnum opus, the opera Sacco and Vanzetti, which I completed and premiered with piano in 2001, but which has waited 21 years for its upcoming orchestral premiere that I'll be conducting, directed by Benjamin Spearman at Lehman College in the Bronx, September 10th and 11th. I think Ben just joined us. Am I right? I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Yes,
Video.
I am here. I am here. How's everybody doing today?
Are you on? Can you put your video on too?
No, not today. Sorry,
Oh,
but
okay. Well, it's good to see you or to hear you. We've got at least one of those performers. I was expecting four, but we'll see what happens. Nicola Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti were two anarchist Italian immigrants who were tried, convicted, and in 1927, despite a worldwide outcry, were executed for crimes they did not commit. 50 years later, they were exonerated by Massachusetts Governor Michael S. Dukakis, whom Helene and I met for the first time in person 13 days ago at his home in Brookline, Mass. There we learned that he had been influenced in his judgment by the same man who had convinced Mark Blitzstein that, despite rumors to the contrary, Sacco and Vanzetti were completely innocent. That man was Governor Mike's Brookline neighbor, Assistant Defense Counsel for appealing the case, Herbert Ehrman. And it was Blitzstein's notes on the opera's scenario written in the appendix of his copy of Ehrman's book, which I found in his archives at the State Historical Society in Madison, Wisconsin, that enabled me to figure out the structure Blitzstein had envisioned for the work. And then I spent 25 years finishing it. I have that here in the libretto that Theodore Presser Company puts out. There are these pages that you can see with Blitzstein's handwriting. You see how he wrote Act 1, and this is the appendix from Herbert Ehrman's book that Mark Blitzstein wrote in, showing how he was going to structure his opera as Act 1, 2, and 3. So the first three excerpts that we're going to hear are from courtroom scenes based on the trial transcript. First, we'll hear bass baritone Christopher Treft outlining District Attorney Frederick Katzmann's argument, attempting to dispel any reasonable doubts. Then we'll hear tenor Kevin Courtemanche as Judge Webster Thayer poo-pooing any inference of prejudice. And then we'll hear tenor Andrew Klima as defense attorney Fred Moore trying to put the whole justice system on trial and being rebuked by the judge.
There is a galaxy of witnesses, the alibi defense. I have not begun to do it justice, and the only way that justice could be done to it, in its full absurdity and utter lack of convincing qualities, would be to read every word of it, and then you would very likely be here until Labor Day. The parties come to you and ask you to find what the truth is on the issues of guilt or innocence. Gentlemen of the jury, do your duty. Do it like men, prejudicial remark made and none intended. I simply asked you, sir, whether you propose to offer evidence as to what you have said to me. There is no disposition. Nothing has been said to do the slightest thing in any manner whatsoever to prejudice the rights of either defendant. The only question I was passing upon was competency of testimony. Questions are not evidence. Statements of counsel are not evidence. Statements by the court are not evidence. The jury will be governed by absolutely nothing but testimony admitted and heard by you from the witness stand.
Gentlemen, there is not a single witness called by the government who had an unqualified opportunity of observation and who gives an identification. Not one, they could not. You know it, and I know it. The bench and bar of Massachusetts and your entire system are on trial here, not these defendants. The defense committee was offered their freedom in exchange for $40,000 cash, $5,000 down. Implicated was Mr. Katzman, his brother Percy, and the clerk of the Dedham District Court. The participants in the plea bargaining act in question may have committed a slight indiscretion, but there was no criminal act involved. You are to direct your attention to the acts of these defendants.
So now I'm going to introduce a baritone I've had the pleasure of working with for a number of years, Michael Nyman, who is the High Holidays cantor for the Metropolitan Synagogue, has been since the last century, where I've been music director since 2014, and he'll be singing Vanzetti. I also want to mention Lars Woodall, who had hoped to be with us but couldn't be. He sang several roles in the 2001 production, including that of appeals attorney William Thompson, including a monologue at the beginning of Act 3, which he sang then, but which we'll be cutting this coming September. Michael, would you like to say hello?
Hello there. Hello, everybody. How's it going? This is a real pleasure to be a part of again in this series of wonderful performances and Zoom concerts that Leonard has put up. And it's been a real pleasure to get to work with Leonard. And yesterday, I got to work with Leonard and our wonderful tenor in SACCO and Vanzetti playing the role of Sacco. And Chris Remkus, who is currently living in Boston and came down for rehearsal. So that was really great. I really enjoyed that.
It was great having the two of you. And Michael, you actually did the very first Zoom concert that we ever did for the Walt Whitman birthplace.
That's right.
Me and Helene, and that set the precedent for then all these library concerts. So you're really in on the ground floor. And we'll first hear Michael in a little aria based on a letter from Vanzetti, who loved words and was a bit of a poet in his own right, in which he talks of writing a poem in terza rima. And then we'll hear Lars Whittle in appeals attorney Thompson's aria based on the trial transcript, deploring the government's prioritizing secrecy over providing possibly exculpatory evidence for the defense.
Out on the street I look at everybody, which are employed and which are not, I think I know. Employed went straight ahead and steady, as a man who know just where he want to go. The others are too lost to rise above it. They look around, about, and then below. We enter now a park, the beauty of it. If I were a poet, and I know the meter in terts or rima, I'd write of how I love it. But I am not so vain. I think it is completer if I just look and not disturb the vista. Then how it move me will be all the sweeter.
They did not believe in organized government or private property. Oh, all those words will ring around the world. Private property. Think what is going to be said about it. The man who does not believe in private property in America may be killed, whether he is guilty or not. That is going to be said from one end of the earth to the other, and we afford it.
Can we afford it? Indeed. So there you have 5 excerpts from SACCO and VANZETTI that will not be heard in September, but you've heard them for the first time. Now it's time to thank our benefactor, the head of the Mandelbaum Foundation and former director of the Aaron Copland School of Music at Queens College, Professor Emeritus and composer Joel Mandelbaum, with the world premiere of a movement for viola and piano, which he wrote some time ago, but has somehow never been performed before. Joel, would you like to start your video and unmute yourself? And
I'm unmuted, but my video won't start.
We'll ask you to start, and that should work now. Try it again.
Yes,
There you go.
now it works. Now it works.
You had to be asked, but we asked you. So tell us, this is the middle movement of a sonata?
Yes, a clarinet sonata that I wrote for Michelle Grossman for her senior recital. Michelle, among other things, was a devoted piano student of Abrahams Sternklar's.
Oh.
Like Brahms, I thought it would also make a nice viola sonata, and the first and last movements do make a very good first and last movements of a viola sonata. But the middle movement of the clarinet sonata, which is very jazzy, has such a taste of the clarinet reed in it that it would not have translated well to viola. So I wrote a substitute middle movement for the sonata when it is done by the viola.
And that movement has never been done until now, is that right?
Never.
Okay, so in the course of these concerts, Dan Hyman and I have done all the Brahms sonatas for violin and piano and for viola and piano, as well as some Mandelbaum. So we're very pleased to be premiering this work of yours. Dan, I've invited you to start your video and to unmute. Would you please do that?
So
you're unmuted, but can you also start your video?
I keep trying and it keeps not letting me.
Let's see if there's a way to ask you to do that.
I think he's on the iPad, and sometimes we have problems. Remember?
Ask to start video. I just hit that. Is it frozen?
Oh, so I'm saying.
There you
okay,
go. There you are.
Here I am.
Okay, so you want to say a word about this piece that we've just learned of Joel's?
Well, that word would be graceful and maybe also solemn. Not sad in a mawkish or dramatic sense, but reflective and it's very gratifying to play, and I hope it's equally so to hear.
So here's the world premiere of a movement marked Mesto, which means sad, for viola and piano by Joel Mandelbaum. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Joel. So now here's another short world premiere on the subject of marriage, a setting that I couldn't resist writing for Helene, having been married for almost 20 years now, on a poem by the feminist writer Margaret Atwood, whose most famous work is the timeless The Handmaid's Tale. Here now is Habitation.
Marriage is not a house or even a tent. It is before that and colder. The edge of the forest, the edge of the desert, the unpainted stairs at the back where we squat outside eating popcorn. The edge of the receding glacier, where painfully and with wonder at having survived even this far, they are learning to make fire.
That was a premiere. And now we're going to have what Joel Mandelbaum is often called a deuxième, a second performance of a work that I think was only performed once by its composer, the late Abraham Sternklar, who passed away at the age of 92 this past January. Abraham was not a teacher of mine, but rather a mentor and a model. As co-director of the Long Island Composers Alliance, LICA, in the 1970s, early 1980s, he greatly increased the number of the organization's concerts by producing and performing on many of them himself, as I did as the group's first president in the 1990s. It was my great privilege to produce and perform with him a tribute to his 80th birthday at the Plainview Old Bethpage Library, December 19th, 2010. And when I went to his funeral, which was largely a private affair, there were very few people there except virtually, there was a poster of that concert there. I was very honored by that. And at the ceremony, I was deeply moved when a recording of his playing a piece he called Thanks was played by his son Daniel, who is with us today, and whom I was very pleased to get the group to make. I was very pleased to get the group to make his mother, Evelyn Sternklar, an honorary member. I was hoping she would be here too. But Daniel, would you like to say a few words about the piece? I think it was written after a hospitalization in gratitude to Evelyn and her caregiving talents. Can we ask Daniel to unmute and start his video? I think he is unmuted, but yes, there you go. Daniel, you're on. Are you there?
Yeah, let me get the camera on. Oh, actually, I'm not sure why my camera's not showing up, but the background is. That's interesting.
There you are.
Oh, there we go. Okay, it just took a while to pop in. Okay, well, thank you for including my dad's work in this concert. I very much appreciate it.
Great pleasure.
And the background behind it is that during the month of January, back in 1985, my dad, Abraham Sternklar, underwent some extensive surgery at the local Plainview Hospital. Recovery was a bit slow, but complete thanks to the care given to him by his wife, Evelyn. No wonder her middle name is Florence. The composition, appropriately entitled Thanks, was dedicated to her. It was completed on March 15th, 1985, and slightly amended again on May 4th, 1986. The premiere performance took place at the South Huntington Library on June 6, 1986, during a LICA concert. The composition is improvisational in character. It is at once dreamy and free, as well as dramatic and intense. Unusual meters prevail. The piece begins in 5/4 time, a favorite of my dad's. He likes the circular feel of a 5-beat measure as opposed to the angular symmetry of the usual 5/4 time.
5/4/4 time.
Yes, I'm sorry, 4/4 time. Stuck in that 5/4. In addition, numerous cadential and cascade-like passages contribute further to the picturesque feel of this quasi-romantic, impressionistic work.
Now, you're actually reading from the description of the YouTube video that he made of this. Is that right?
That is correct. You can
And
find
did-
that on YouTube. Search on his name and the word thanks.
Did he perform it more than that once? Do you know?
Not that I know of.
So the video is of that performance, in other words.
Correct, yeah.
So, and this, as we said earlier, is a deuxième, and I'm very honored to play this piece of his. I hope it comes up to his standard.
Well, thank you for doing it.
Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for sending that beautiful piece, and I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed playing it.
Oh, very much. Just love those chords. Thank you for performing it.
My pleasure. So we're up to 26 in the participants list, I see. But there's one person that I was expecting and hoping and who told me he would be coming that I'm afraid is not here. That's the current, though unfortunately recently recalled, District Attorney of San Francisco, Chesa Boudin, who's been a friend of our family in a way even before he was born, August 21st, 1980. His grandfather, Leonard Boudin, who sometimes called me his namesake, was one of America's great civil liberties lawyers, a friend and supporter of Mark Blitzstein and of my productions of Blitzstein's works at Harvard and elsewhere. And he told me that he thought his greatest claim to fame was probably in having gotten Paul Robeson back his passport. But he was also the defense attorney for Daniel Ellsberg and so many other progressive heroes. Leonard's daughter, Kathy Boudin, and her husband, David Gilbert, whom I visited in prison, served time for the Brinks robbery of 1981, but were model prisoners and educators. One of Governor Andrew Cuomo's last acts in office was to allow David's release on parole so he could be with his son, Chesa, and with Kathy, who died of cancer this past May 1st. I only met her once at David Dellinger's funeral at Riverside Church, introduced by Pete Seeger. But I learned from her and my friend, Esther Cohen, that she'd written quite a bit of poetry. And I'd been in touch with Chesa since he gave a brilliant presentation at the Five Towns Forum at the Hewlett-Woodmere Library some years ago on Venezuela. I wrote to Chesa and asked him if I might set some of that poetry to music. He responded by sending me a few poems, including this really beautiful one that she wrote about a solar eclipse she experienced with him on his 37th birthday, and how it brought back the cherished memory of his birth. So tonight, you'll hear Helene sing that setting of mine, dedicated to her and her son, Benjamin, who is here, for the first time, though she tells me she's still working on it and hopes to make a better recording of it sometime in the future. Here is Son, Son.
The day was filled with expectations and anticipation. It began sitting on the beach, watching the sun rise. A red dot appears, piercing the sky gray blue background. A burning campfire ember in a dark night. The dot swells and rises, turning into an orange balloon, sitting on the water where the sky and ocean meet. The birds start singing, greeting the sun, taking me back to 37 years ago, waiting your arrival at the exact same time, 6 a.m. First tiny toes popped out, and with pushing and pulling, you become bigger and bigger until you appear full body or son. Later in the day we sit, our heads white sand dunes with deep green patches and brown grasses swaying against the white. The sun began its descent back into the water, a straight line of light laying on top of the ocean, coming towards us. The sun moving down, 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 until just around the curve of light that then disappears, and the sky begins to turn rose. I go back to that moment when you lay on top of my chest, moist and warm, so soft, with a glow of life. Both of us exhausted from our journey, and we descended into sleep. The day was defined by the sun, as you, my son, have been the son of my
Sun, Sun by Kathy Boudin in my setting in its first performance by Helene Williams, who it's dedicated along with her son, Ben Spearman. Now we'll hear two nocturnes. The first is a piano piece by my former student at Cornell, Donald Sloan, a native of Bethpage, Long Island, who's now professor of music at Coastal Carolina University in the renowned resort town of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The second is a violin piano piece by Engelbert Humperdinck, the composer of Hansel and Gretel and teacher of, among others, Wallingford Rieger, who was the teacher of Elie Siegmeister. We actually recorded, Dan and I, the Humperdinck piece for last June's Students and Teachers Concert, but didn't have time to include it then, so we're going to include it now. First, Don, would you like to unmute and start your video and say a word about your piece? I gather that it was inspired by a Japanese painting and written for your wife, Renee, who premiered it, and this is, I think, a deuxième, is that right?
That's right. I can't start my video.
Right
oh,
now,
there we go.
right now.
Start my video. There we are.
Okay.
And yes, and Leonard, I don't think I ever told you that my mom taught in Valley Stream for 2 decades.
For goodness sake.
She's a school nurse teacher and taught health classes at Memorial Junior High.
Oh, goodness.
And, which is germane here because the nocturne that I wrote is in her memory.
Oh.
And we always had a lot of Japanese artifacts around the house. My dad did business with a number of Japanese companies, so we had silk screens and figurines and bonsai plants and things like that. So I was picturing one of those silk screens that shows a boat on the water at night with the moon reflecting off the water and the reeds coming up from the seashore and things like that.
I think there's a specific print that you sent me. Do you have it there to show us, or available?
If I can share it, let me see if I can get it up.
You can't screen share unless we make you co-host. But if you have it there to a hard copy or something, you can show us.
I don't have a hard copy with me, so.
Okay. Oh, no, is Renee with you?
It's called Moonlit Sea by Shota Koho.
And is Renee with you?
I'm sorry?
Is Renee there?
She is. She's back there somewhere.
Oh, well, we'd love to see. I don't think we've ever met her, have we?
Oh, okay. I think she wants to make sure that our dog doesn't Zoom bomb our concert. But anyway, so my mom used to say that she hated funerals, not because they were sad, but she didn't like the sort of, she said that when you hear the speeches at funerals, it often barely resembles the person that you knew, and it's nothing but good blah blah blah. And she'd rather have something, that was more true to life, I guess she would say. And she said, for my funeral, no speeches, please. Just sit everyone down and have them listen to the last movement of Beethoven's Ninth and to Debussy's Clair de Lune. So I couldn't very well write a nocturne for piano with Beethoven's Ninth, but there is a little cameo appearance from Clair de Lune towards the end of this.
Yeah, we were talking about this. My mother also said that the Beethoven Ninth was her favorite piece, but we didn't make everybody sit and listen to the last movement. We just had them listen at her funeral to her favorite singer, Paul Robeson, singing the Ode to Joy, and with the Brother Sing Your Country's Anthem. And you have Clair de Lune in this, and as I was telling you, Clair de Lune is one of our favorite pieces. We've done it many times with various bits of choreography that we won't go into now. But let's hear this wonderful nocturne of Donald Sloan, followed by the Notturno for violin and piano by Engelbert Humperdinck.
That's lovely.
Very nice.
That's
Okay, let's do it
lovely.
together.
So if you heard a similarity to Brahms, it was not coincidental. Humperdinck was kind of the successful intersection between Brahms and Wagner. And we are grateful to the Bill Melton, the biographer of Humperdinck in Belgium, who sent us that that music. I don't think it's ever been performed in this country before, and we're grateful to Ralph Locke, who's on the call with us, for having sent us to Martin Anderson, whose Toccata Classics published that biography. Now, Nadia Boulanger used to say that a full musical education takes 12 years. I actually knew only one student of hers who took her up on that and studied with her for a solid 12 years. His name was Hugh Robertson, and he had the distinction of being a grandson of the great Russian bass Fyodor Shaliapin. I knew him at Fontainebleau in 1969 and then in Paris in 71 to 72. His music is in the Boulanger archive at Harvard, and he also gave me a copy of his piano trio, the slow movement of which we performed last year, and his violin piano sonata, the slow movement of which Dan and I will perform for you now. It's dedicated, quote, to Chris and Jay. And I know that Jay is Jay Gottlieb, whose piano trio we also performed last year. But unfortunately, I have no idea who Chris is or was, and Jay apparently doesn't remember either. But here is the slow movement of the piano trio by Hugh Robertson. Excuse me, The slow movement of the violin piano sonata by Hugh Robertson. Another student of Nadia Boulanger and Wallingford Rieger, as we mentioned earlier, was my principal teacher and mentor, Elie Siegmeister. When Elie was on his deathbed early in 1991, he said to me, "I don't want to call you my disciple, as I don't believe in doctrine, but you're my continuator. If I leave something unfinished, I know you'll finish it." And although that's been true of me with regard to Mark Blitzstein, many of whose works I've edited, adapted, and or completed, it's only true of a handful of Siegmeister's works. But here's one of them. This is a lyrical love duet that was sketched but left incomplete from an operetta he and Langston Hughes were commissioned to write for the Pennsylvania Opera called The Wizard of Altoona. We'll follow it with the first movement of his final sonata for violin and piano, number 6, the only one not on commercial disc, which Dan and I recorded last year but didn't have time to include that.
Laura, this morning along the roadside through the valley, violets bloomed, bird songs filled the air. Then I saw lilacs on your hair, I saw the roses in your garden there. If you look out of your window, Laura, you will find your answer everywhere. No rose need ask if sun is sun. No bird need ask if spring is spring. Your heart need only ask your heart if love is love. No sunrise asks if night is done. No garden asks if June is June. No lovers ever ask the moon if its silvery beams are really real or golden dreams. As moon knows moonrise, sun knows sunrise. That's how your heart knows love. Lilacs ask if dew is dew, nor morning star if sky is sky. You need only ask your heart if that feeling in your heart is like the sunrise, like the moonrise. Just ask your heart when love is love.
I dare not ask if love is love. I dare not ask if dreams come true. My heart can only ask my heart
The first movement of Elie Siegmeister's sixth and final sonata for violin and piano. Now we're going to hear three works by the teacher at Cornell whom Elie Siegmeister sent me to, Robert M. Palmer. First, though, I'd like to greet his daughter and son-in-law, Anne and David Plain. Hello, David, and hello, Anne.
Hey, Leonard, how are you doing, brother?
It's great to see you. And we saw Anne before, now we see David, and Anne is still there, right?
Yeah, she's still here.
Okay. Well, we're going to hear three works by Anne's father. First, a piano solo called Transitions, which he wrote when Dale Corson was retiring from the Cornell presidency in 1977, which was also my last year as a graduate student at Cornell. I performed it on my 50th birthday concert at the Bryant Library, August 20th, 1999, with Bob Palmer in attendance. We're going to view that performance. And then Dan Hyman and I will play violin and piano in the third and final movement of Bob's lovely sonata, originally for flute and piano, in which form Bill Cowdery was the pianist at the premiere. We did the slow movement last year, you were with us, and we decided to learn the finale for this concert. And then Helene will sing one of Bob's few solo songs, a poem by Will Gibson called Caw River, which he set to music back in 1943, and which Helene and I originally recorded for a house concert commemorating Bob's centennial back in 2015. Here are Transitions, Flute Sonata, Movement 3 for violin and piano, movement and then Caw River.
starling of shade and derelict sedge, your daughter of flow, sluggard, held in your sand, and I who am dumb on your slope. Oh, when is the wind of our rain, high water,
So there we have three works by Robert Palmer from three different decades. The first from the 70s, the second from the 90s, and the third from the 40s. David and Anne, would you like to tell us a little bit more about those pieces that we don't already know, that maybe you remember or know about? The flute sonata was kind of a premier anadusium because it had a performance once with flute, and this was, I think, the first performance with violin. Core River is one of Bob's very few songs. I don't know how often it's been performed. We've enjoyed doing it. And then the transitions piece, I know Malcolm Bilson premiered, and I played it at that concert in Roslyn. Bob was there. You couldn't see him on the camera, but you could see me motioning to him. And right after it, you brought him over to our house, and he sat down at the piano and played four hands the notorious third scene from Blitzstein's SACCO and VANZETTI that he had played with Blitzstein in Rome. So he was a tremendous inspiration. Do you have some insights or remembrances about any of these pieces?
Well, Leonard, as you know, and this is David speaking, I was the publicist for Professor Palmer for better than 30 years. And I recall fondly the friendship between Bill Gibson and Bob Palmer. Mr. Gibson was quite a famous man, as you know, and the relationship went quite a bit deeper than the surface of that. And I think this poem of Bill's that Bob set to music was a special tribute to and for him. And I think he took great pleasure in doing that. I wanted to say that also that the flute sonata, which has been transcribed for violin, was the final piece that Bob was able to complete in his lifetime, and his prodigious number of works was beyond 60. The majority of which was piano music, as you know. And Transitions was a labor of love during a time when Cornell was transitioning in great measure to a great man. And I believe that that Cornell went on to even greater things with the selection of Dr. Rhodes, Dr. Frank Rhodes, beyond Dale Corson. And Bob was particularly pleased with both his position and the extent that he was meaningful to Cornell University. And he always loved his students immensely, yourself included.
Oh, he was a dear, dear man, and one of the very best teachers. He prided himself on being able to get inside a student's style and improvise in that style to show the student possibilities of composition that the student might not have realized himself or herself. And he was quite amazing that way, selfless and devoted and so inspiring. He really was. So thank you, Ann, and thank you, David. We're going to go on to the last work on the program, which is a piece that in the orchestrated version became my master's thesis at composition at Cornell in 1975. I started working on it at Harvard in 1970 while studying with Earl Kim and Leon Kirshner, whose sonata concertante for violin and piano that Dan and I played last year was very much emulated by me. Then I put it aside and I took it up again while studying with Nadia Boulanger in Paris. When I finished it in 1971, she was impressed enough to work very hard to find a French violinist to perform it, but was passive-aggressively resisted, first by Régis Pasquier and then Alain Molia. They said it was impossible. Anyway, Janet Packer finally premiered it at Cornell and MIT and Exeter in 1973. It had one other performance by Cyrus Stevens on my 50th birthday, August 20th, 1999, at that same library concert we saw part of earlier. When I first met Dan Hyman about a decade ago, I expressed the hope that he might learn it, and he did perform the first movement at my 70th birthday concert at Oyster Bay Library, August 20th, 2019. But now at last, he's learned, and we're performing all three movements: Andante cantabile, Adagio ma non troppo non tratto, and Allegro brillante. Helene is saying bravo off mic. Well, that was some effort and some accomplishment. Dan, you want to unmute and say a few words? Take center stage here.
Yes, I would like to say, and I would also like to thank you for guiding me through all kinds of effects and techniques and stuff I wasn't sure anyone could play in the violin, let alone me. So the piece reaches me emotionally, which draws me through the performance.
Well, you did a beautiful job. It took an awfully long time, but it was worth it, I think, I hope. And of course, my dream is now that SACCO and Vanzetti is finally going to have its orchestral premiere after all these years. I would love to have this work have its orchestral premiere. It was, I completed it before the age of 26, and it was entered in the BMI competition, and George Crumb heard it and couldn't imagine why it didn't win, but it did win as a finalist for the 1991 National Orchestra Association composition competition. It was a finalist, but never got a reading. Well, there aren't any parts, so it would have been difficult if they had asked for a reading. But I'm hoping that maybe the orchestra that plays SACCO and Vanzetti will be able to play this. Carol Husa was my teacher when Bob Palmer was on sabbatical for a year, and that's when I completed the orchestration of this for my master's. And he said, it will sound, he said, but there are only 10 or 12 orchestras in the whole country who could handle this. And, so as we discover when we do our operas, that frequently we just have to find or invent the performing apparatus, the performers, the singers, the orchestra players. Don, I see your wife is in the background, and I haven't met her before. Renee, please come forward and say hello. You want to unmute Don? Yes, there you go. Hello there.
Hi.
It's great to meet you. Listen, you must be some pianist to have handled that piece the way you did. I really admired the recording that you sent me of your playing that piece of Don's.
Oh, thank you. I'm always amazed at how difficult a piece he will write for me.
Has he written a lot for you?
Hmm?
Has he written a lot for you?
Every
4 pieces.
Every couple of years, I'll crank one out.
Yeah, he cranked this one out though, and I said, "How am I going to do this?" But it eventually happened. So I'm glad it got a second.
Helene, what are we up to now? 173, I think, the number of pieces I've written for you.
I don't know, but he keeps writing them. whenever I was going through 2 years of coughing, and so my voice was clicking, but he's still well. There he goes. Write out another 4 or 5 of them, and he puts them in my key, and I sing them.
And she complains all the time, and then she does it so beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they are. Music is wonderful, and it's wonderful to create.
So we didn't have anybody on the call from Europe this time, but we do have our dear friend Alex Skovron from Australia. Alex, would you like to put your video on? You've unmuted, right? Can we see you?
Yes, here I am. I am
here.
here.
In your wonderful library.
Howdy. Hi, how's it going?
Great to see you.
Thank you for another great concert. I was a bit in and out of it because it's first thing in the morning here, but I always appreciate your fabulous programming and the diversity of the repertoire.
Oh, thank you. And Tova, you said something about, who was it? Somebody wrote a message about the astounding...
astounding breadth of the
breadth, that's the word, yeah.
It was just staggering.
That's us. We're staggering all the time, trying to get through everything.
And Tova, you had a question to ask Dan.
Oh, I did, and he answered me. I said, "What are you doing next year?" Because obviously this is what he did this last year. He just played for these concerts. He said he's recovering next year.
That was a private message we didn't see. Huh?
Yes.
Well, actually, Dan has been coming on Tuesdays and playing chamber music with me now for a couple of years. And
yeah, in fact, we changed the lawn guys away from Tuesday because they kept coming around when they were rehearsing.
That's right.
They're on Thursday now.
So I'm hoping that he will continue. And of course, he's going to be working with me on the SACCO and Vanzetti parts with the bowing and figuring out the cues and so forth. So he's a member of our family now. I mean, we're not going to let him go, even though we won't have this series. We're hoping this is really up to the library, but we're hoping that we can return, once or twice a year to do some more concerts, or not 6 or 10, which is what we've done the last 2 years. But it's a very wonderful experience, and having all of you with us is great too. Still, Kevin Scott is with us, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we commissioned a piece from him, which we had 2
Not
horn
familiar.
players freak out on us, not do, but it's still on the back burner. If we can find a horn player that doesn't cut her lip or something, then
Or break her knee.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
I think there's a couple that might be able to do it. I have to talk to them, and I think I got a couple of interested people. Like I said, it was just a matter that the last time we couldn't get anyone at that, because it was too short a notice. But now that
we had someone, and then she had an accident, and then we had another one, and then she had an accident.
Yeah, and trying to. It was also the middle of COVID, the beginnings of COVID, and people were really scared to do anything without a mask on.
Exactly.
And you can't play the horn with a mask on.
Well,
no, not exactly.
Well, right now I've got about 6 horn players that have the piece, and probably
Really?
I got 6 horn players.
Wow.
From that last call. So it's just a matter of talking to 1 or 2 of them and see which one's interested. And once we can do that, you guys can hook up and do it. Terrific. That would be great.
We'll see about. I would say maybe next February, but we'll just have to see. At this point, we don't, we don't have plans for another concert, another Zoom concert, but we hope that we will eventually. Joel, tell us your plans for the village.
Well, still expecting a performance in Hamburg in November. Kathy, of course, who as the and her husband Dirk putting it on, and we expect to go there. Excerpts are being done from time to time here as well, and I'll post a few on my website. If anyone is interested in getting onto the website, just write Joel Mandelbaum musician as one word .com, and you're there.
That's how we found this piece, as a matter of fact, because when you sent us the notice of the website, I immediately looked at it, and I said, "Hey, look, there's a piece for viola and piano. We're looking for such a piece. It's never been performed. Hey, it's a premiere," and that's what we did.
I hope you and Dan did a wonderful job of that middle movement. I hope sometime you'll try the whole sonata. It's not that hard.
We have it, and we've looked at it.
I'd love that.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe Queens College can hire us to come and perform it there or something. That would be nice.
Queens College lately can't hire anything.
Yeah, they
can't
have their
even
own
get you on,
performers.
they
They
even
don't
can't let you get on campus.
Oh God, yeah, that's right. In fact, you gave me the music coming off. I had to drive up to the campus.
I had to go off campus.
From you.
Yeah. They were,
Brother.
Well, okay. Ralph Locke and Michael Neiman and Deborah Frank are still with us, but not.
I have to go.
Okay.
And
well, it's great seeing all of you, and it's wonderful performing.
I get the
for you,
last word.
I hope that there will be another.
Do I get the last word?
I
don't get the last word.
Yes,
you do. The last word.
I had a whole
You
bunch
got
of
it right
last
now.
words. The first thing I wanted to say was that Alex Scovern's library, that's an actual library. That's not a fake background.
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah,
We know.
yeah. And I also wanted to say something back with Donald Sloan and the Claire de Lune at the end of the piece, which was a gorgeous piece. And I had an encounter with the Claire de Lune last year when I was preparing an in memoriam for my high school reunion. So I put together this PowerPoint, and we had somebody put music on. I found a loop of Claire de Lune. Somebody put it together, a whole hour's worth of Claire de Lune, so you can chill for it. But by the time I finished with that project, I didn't want to hear Claire de Lune ever again.
But the best way to hear Claire de Lune is to go to our website, to our YouTube channel, and Mamie said we have over 1 million views. 2 of the most commonly viewed. I mean, like over 30,000 people have watched these views, these pas de deux and pas de trois that we have of Claire de Lune. If you watch it, you'll see why so many people have watched it. But it's fun to do things to WC.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any other last word, Helene?
To be continued.
That's
come to see SACCO and Vanzetti.
Oh yes.
In the Bronx,
That's one of the
September
reasons
10th.
this is the last concert. We were planning another one for Helene's mother's
Just
birthday,
mute him.
September 13th, but it's too close to September 10th and 11th, which is the premiere of SACCO and VANZETTI. Do come to see that. Send people
Yeah.
to see it. And
You
Dan
heard-
will be playing. We will be leading from the viola section, and we're hoping that maybe his granddaughter will play Sacco's son. That's what we're.
If anybody has a likely prospect of a kid who really loves to do stage things, send him along to us, him or her even. You know,
That's right.
put a cap on and it's a boy. That's it. Thank you so much for coming.
Let us know when you're going to be
Thank you.
north again, Don. We'd be great to see you in person.
Mwah, mwah.
Lovely to meet you, Renee. Thank you all. Thank you, Daniel.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.